maybe the objectives of that. So I would like some clarity on what this is about.
Well, Mr. Chairman, unfortunately, I do the asking, you do the answering. You don't, unfortunately, you don't get the opportunity to ask me. I get the opportunity to ask you. But I'm sure as we go along, you'll get to know exactly what I want to get. One of the things I want to find out from you is that the McKinsey consultancy with GRA, how was it procured?
That will be the process that GRA put into place for that to occur.
Was it sole source? Was it publicly advertised? Were they competitive bidding to arrive at McKinsey as the consultancy to deal with GRA with regards to what you wanted to do? There's mobile revenue to boost revenue collection. Was what procedure was used in procuring McKinsey?
I'll have to get advice on that from GRA.
Do you know how much was involved in the consultancy with McKinsey with GRA?
I don't have the rates with me.
You've not heard that it's about 18.5 billion US dollars. You've not heard that. You are the finance minister. GRA works under you. They procure for consultancy worth $18.5 million, and the finance minister is not aware.
I don't know the efficacy of that number, but I can check on that.
Since McKinsey engaged GRA, has the revenue target set for McKinsey to be able to achieve, was it realized?
I think if you look at the growth of revenue in GRA, there's been improvements in there as to whether they have met sometimes the high expectations that we have exacted on them. No, but I think in 2020 we were quite impressed with what they did given the COVID impact of their performance.
Mr. Chairman, was it as a result of your staff work or measures put in by McKinsey? Are you sure that...
I think, Mr. Chairman, that's always a difficulty in the entry of consultants in everything, where you know, one could question whether it is the new approach that is doing it, or whether the staff could have done it by themselves. And then you look at historical performance and see whether it was beyond what they typically do to then assess whether the consultancy has been helpful to them.
Chairman, I just want to find out the nominee, the board of GRA is usually composed by the finance minister, am I right?
Yes, yes, but I usually have discussions with the presidency on some of these important areas.
But basically what it means is that the board cannot be composed without your input.
That's correct.
Who is NS Ofori?
NS Ofori is a technical advisor at the Ministry of Finance, who I brought in from Databank when I was made finance minister.
So more or less an advisor to the finance minister, right?
That's correct.
Are you aware that
he's also on the board of GRA? You
are aware that the law that establishes Ghana Revenue Authority clearly states that the representative of Ministry of Finance will be someone director and above and cannot be below director?
Yes, representative of the Ministry of Finance.
So why will Ernest Akori, who is not a director or above a director, be used to replace a deputy minister of finance on the GRA board?
Mr. Chairman, that was a philosophical decision with regards to the deputy ministers getting off of the board for both ourselves, Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Trade, because we believe it to be more efficient about that. Now, I think thank you for that illumination, and therefore it is possible to get a director level to the board as we select, because he could also be any member of society that could be on the board.
So will you take steps to correct this? Because the law is very clear. You need to use a director or someone above a director to represent the ministry on GRA board.
Mr. Chairman, we will correct this.
Are you aware that when the board were recomposed, they renegotiated the McKinsey deal with the consultancy firm? Are you aware?
Mr. Chairman, I'm aware that a lot of negotiations seem to be going on with the McKinsey transaction. I don't know the final result of that.
But what necessitated the renegotiation by the recomposed board? If McKinsey was doing the work as they expected, and then a new recomposition of the board with a new Commissioner General comes and they say, no, we need to review the consultancy agreement. What necessitated that?
Mr. Chairman, that's the beauty of changing leadership, and therefore whether performance is ascribed to certain issues, and they feel that the issues have changed, and therefore it should be better aligned to something. I think that's a call of the leadership to do, but I can't have ascribe any sort of ill motives to that, except to save more money for the entity or make it more efficient in terms of the contract. We ourselves are negotiating various energy contracts, etc., so that we can save money for the Republic.
Well, I'm happy you were talking about saving money, but how different was the original to the amended one? When the original was $18.5 million US, the revised one says it's reduced to $15 million, but with administrative expenses cost of $3.5 million US. I mean, when you add it, it was still the 18.5. How different was the original with the revised one?
Mr. Chairman, you are mentioning a lot of numbers here, in which I had earlier indicated that I'll make myself familiar with it. So I'll do that.
Mr. Chairman, Minister, this was done at a time when the they were having revenue shortages. GRA was having revenue shortages.
Mr. Chairman, GRA's revenue shortages are not an issue of today. It's yeah. So I need to get into the details of the negotiation.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to find out from the Minister whether, considering the amount paid out to this consultancy firm, vis-a-vis what they could help GRA raise, does not defeat the basic canon of taxation of economy, that the cost of collection should not exceed the amount raised. How do you intend to ensure that these overpayments are recovered and such engagements in future do not happen? Because if you look at the amount of money that we are paying, even though you say you are not very comfortable with the figure, about $18.5 million, if you look at what came up since their engagement, it's far less than this. So it's making it look as though their engagement has not really brought more than what they are being paid for. Will you consider going into this? And possibly, if there's some overpayment, you get them retrieved.
Mr. Chairman, the canon of protecting the public purse is really the responsibility of the Ministry of Finance. As I mentioned, I will look at this and therefore take appropriate measures as required.
Mr. Chairman, I want to find out from the Minister, as ISEP reported that clearly Ghana is losing over 2.5 billion US dollars every year from the mining sector as a result of illicit financial flow. I mean, the whole of this week, a number of radio stations were discussing this. What measures is he going to put in place, if given the nod, to help deal with this illicit financial flow?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I think the issue of illicit financial flows is maybe 50-70 billion for Africa, and therefore, in our view, might be easily 4-5 billion in all sorts of ways for Ghana. That we need to put things into place to do that. So first you have the small sort of gold mining area in which we need to tighten exactly how the gold is procured and how it is taken out. So if you look at example of cocoa board's structure, should we be looking at something similar to the small-scale gold industry so that we fund our capacity to be able to buy all the gold and therefore be responsible for export to cut out that? Because it is alleged that the amount of gold that, let's say, Dubai or India will record from Ghana is very different from our exports. So maybe the Cocoa Marketing Board model may be an interesting one to pursue to cut out that. Then on the bigger gold mining companies, basically ensuring that the assaying, etc., is witnessed. We know exactly the purity that is taken. If you look at, let's say, the manganese industry, where currently they tell us the purity, they tell us the price that they earn, and then they also tell us the weight that goes on. And those are all not verifiable. And therefore, we need to put in place structures to be able to determine that. I think those kind of interventions, when put into place, will make us realize the values that we deserve for that. These have gone on for numbers of years. We've experimented with all sorts of undercover agents, etc. And I think we should be ready to come up with new policies for these areas.
Mr. Chairman, until very recently, any security officer who serves until the age of 45 can voluntarily retire from service and then take gratuity with monthly pension. Since 2017, these officers who retire voluntarily after or around the age of 45 are not given the monthly pension. Minister, why?
Mr. Chairman, I need to look into that. I mean, to be able to, our work with the Minister of Employment and Labor to understand this anomaly.
Because they are accusing that all the paperwork is done and it's the Minister of Finance who since 2017 has refused to pay. So this will be very interesting if you get us back some information as to what exactly the reasons may be, and if there's no any good reason. I believe that our men and women in the security services should be able to feel comfortable with at least what they know exists before they enter into the services. Mr. Chairman, I just want to find out from the minister nominee about the procurement of the 4 helicopters. Yesterday, in answering to a question, he was not very sure whether it's been procured. But I want to find out from whether he's aware of this company, Paramount Group of Company, a South African company. Are you familiar with that company?
Very much so, Mr. Chairman.
Do you have any relationship with that company or any person within the company?
No, Mr. Chairman.
In 2018, we took steps to procure these 4 helicopters, and you were able to pay them for the procurement of these 4 helicopters. Am I right?
Mr. Chairman, I think it wasn't only 4 helicopters. There was issues of arms, equipment, etc. And I believe including those. And I know we have, I don't know the numbers, but I know we still have about $12 million to be able to pay them to complete that package that the Ministry of Interior approved for them. So it sounds to me like they have delivered quite a bit of the armament and other things, and maybe it's a delivery of the helicopters, and that may be in abeyance.
Chairman, why did we choose to do pre-financing with this Paramount Group of companies?
Mr. Chairman, the issue of financing of procurement issues, sometimes depending on the urgency with which the various ministries require, leads to certain modifications for that to occur. I think Paramount was already doing business in the country actually before the emergence of our government, and so they must have had prior experience in terms of how they deliver, etc., etc. So it isn't, i.e., a new company on the books of the various ministries, either defense or interior. So they must have some track record.
Chairman, the minister knows that our GiveMix system does not allow for pre-financing.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, that's true. Mr. Chairman.
So how are we able to make this payment to them when the system that you have put in place or the Minister of Finance have put in place is to ensure that people deliver before they get payment? So how are we able to pay them on a pre-finance basis?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, as you realize, we have not paid them fully. We still have $12 million or so dollars to go, with much less of equipment to deliver. But there do come, Mr. Chairman, extraordinary situations of especially security, in which therefore negotiations between the various ministry finance come to bear for us to make decisions as to how to unlock something that is difficult for a country. So that really would have been the reason for that. But as I mentioned, this is a company that apparently had been working with government already before we came, and I presume must have had some good track record for Minister to advocate for us to accelerate the acquisition of what he thought was needed earnestly.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to find out from the Minister, did they provide any guarantee for those payments that were made?
I don't recall. I can look at those papers.
So can you check that?
Yes, I can check on the papers. But I think also the assurance that in actuality delivery has occurred is important.
So, Mr. Chairman, I want to find out from the Minister, when do we expect them to provide, especially the helicopters, since you said there were so many other accoutrements that they were buying from them. When should we expect the helicopters to be delivered?
Mr. Chairman, I would get into this with the Minister of Interior, and I pray that after Easter, we should be able to supply you with that information.
Mr. Chairman, I want to find out from the Minister, with regards to Ejapa and then the Special Prosecutor, whether he really visited the Special Prosecutor in his home during the crisis or during the investigation.
Mr. Chairman, as I mentioned before, I've known the Special Prosecutor for a while. It wasn't the first time that I was going to his home. Yes, so I did visit him. I had gone to the office on a Friday in which they indicated to me that he was not feeling well and was not at work. So I believe on the Saturday morning, the next day, I did go to visit.
And did you see him?
I did go to visit and I saw him.
And what was the visit intended for? Because you knew he was around that time investigating the issue with regards to the corruption assessment that he was doing, and you were visiting him around that time. What was it intended for?
Well, I didn't know that. I didn't feel that the issues at play stopped me from visiting him. He was not well, and that was important for that to be. I also had supplied Ministry of Finance quite a bit of information to him, and at times he had written that he wasn't getting the information as quickly as he wanted. So there was a need in my mind to also bridge that gap if there was an issue. I think we all know that Mr. Amidou is a very independent person, and so to ascribe being able to influence him by what you say or not, we as a nation know that, and so I wouldn't say that that was an attempt to change his views or anything of that matter.
Mr. Chairman, I just heard the Minister nominee say he has provided him with a lot of information from the Ministry of Finance. Is that right?
Yes, which was being basically processed by my Deputy Minister at that time.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I heard him in an answer yesterday where he said the Special Prosecutor never gave him the opportunity to be heard, and that was against natural justice, is it fair to the Special Prosecutor saying that you provided him with a lot of information, you visited him in the house, even though he was sick, and you wanted to close the gap between whatever you've given him and maybe the information that he was having and how he was processing it? Would that be fair to say that he hasn't heard your side?
Absolutely. There's a difference between taking technical information and sitting down with me to go through the information and for me to explain things. We also propose that we do a presentation to him, which we were not allowed to.
Chairman, for the avoidance of doubt, I just want to find out, and I hope that you permit me to do this. I just want to find out what is the relationship between you and the President, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo?
What is the relationship?
Yeah, the relationship. What is it between you? What is the relationship? I mean, we all hear that's the President's brother. I just want on record.
Oh, you want clarity on that?
Yes.
Okay, I believe that Nanase Ofori-Atta had some 25 wives or so, and therefore maybe 100 or so children. One of the daughters was the sister, half-sister of my father, and so we are cousins.
So you are cousins. And the same way, what is the relation between you and Gabi Ochedako?
Cousins, similar.
Similar, yes, also your cousin.
Grandfather's daughter is the mother.
And data bank, you said yesterday, if I heard you in the question, you said you've left data bank, right?
That's correct. Left data bank as chairman, as board member. That's correct.
But you are still a co-owner?
I'm still a shareholder, that's correct.
You are still a shareholder in Data Bank?
That's correct.
And yesterday you told us that it's taken over 30 years to get Data Bank where it is.
Well, we did register in 1990.
Which law firm was a legal advisor in the Ejapa transaction deal?
The law firms, quite a number of them, including White and Case, etc., abroad. So they were directly that, in which they then had, I think, Bensiential and Africa Legal Associates as, I don't know whether they're subcontractors. I don't know the terms of it, but certainly it wasn't direct procurement of any local law firm.
So a number of them, and does that include that of Gabi Ochedako?
Yes, Africa Legal Associates seem to have been procured by White and Case to do a specific assignment on the transaction for them, which I believe they concluded.
And you know that this...
Including also Bensiential and Company, yeah.
And this UK law firm is also related to Gabi Ochedako?
The UK law firm, White and Case, I know gave a transaction to Africa Legal Associates.
How were these law firms procured? Which method did you use in arriving at these law firms?
Mr. Chairman, I think that the process was, as far as I know, because I did not participate personally in all of that transaction, was done appropriately, and I believe the AG, was quite comprehensive in assessing whether the right thing was done or not.
So, Mr. Chairman, I just want to find out if he's saying that the right processes were followed, then that would mean there will be an evaluation report that arrive at these law firms, right?
Whatever needs to be done will be done. I mean, I truly do not constrive that anything was done wrongly. I believe things were done appropriately, and therefore maybe an OAG's opinion will be helpful to you.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't doubt that. That's what I'm saying, that obviously as the Minister of Finance who will have engaged all these actors, we definitely will have the evaluation report that tells you the reason for A being involved, B being involved in that, and all that. Is that right?
My expectation, Mr. Chairman, is the is the resubmission of this transaction to Parliament, which would enable us to go through this in an even more exhaustive way to do that, and whatever reports required should be required. I really am being very careful about the issue of innovation and ensuring that we don't bastardize something that is good for the Republic. And so the processes, if there are issues, will come back to Parliament, we'll go through that. But I think our eye should be clearly on the ball of a nation that is diversifying how it gets resources to go forward. We have done things the same way for hundreds of years, the largest gold exporter in Africa, and we seem to be spinning. So yes, I think these are very valid questions. Resubmission to Parliament will be very helpful. I think we can dot our I's and cross our T's and look at what this will yield the Republic in the long run.
Mr. Chairman, there were media reports very recently that Data Bank has pulled out of the EJAPA transaction, I mean, being a shareholder. Is that true?
Yes, I did see a letter, and actually I was quite quizzical, but I mean, I think, you know, with corporates, after a point, these noises do not help, and I believe that they thought if their presence was going to be inimical to the realization of this vision which they believe in, then it's better to step out to avoid that noise. But I think as a nation, we should be clear that if this is the effect it's going to have for companies that are competent to take us to the capital markets,
Chairman,
we should clarify.
Chairman, would you leave? Honorable nominee, you mean the media controversies? You refer to noises. I'm saying you mean the media controversies.
That's correct.
Correct. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, so Data Bank pulls out because of the media, to quote you, media noise.
I'm sure you have Data Bank's letter, and therefore other reasons ascribed to that are clear. And I think one of those was that they were not going to be standing in the way of a deal which they thought was good for the Republic. And if their exit would enable the transaction to go on, then they'd rather do that.
Mr. Chairman, Data Bank is not involved with government business only in EJAPA transactions. Are you going to say that because of this, Data Bank is going to pull out of all government businesses?
Well, that's an issue, and I think that's an issue that we as a country should face. But this is an innovative transaction. I think the issues of going to the euro market, etc., are things that we do normally, and maybe there's a better understanding of it. But I think the cynicism that came upon this, which really is a game changer for us as a nation, requires a different decision-making process by the board, I presume.
Chairman, since yesterday I've heard the minister repeatedly talk about cynicism and the worry of many who are watching, not calling that some specific wrong has been done, or maybe they do not have the facts to say that some wrong has been done. If you have your cousin, the Constitution vests the natural resources of this country in his hands. You are the finance minister, you are a major shareholder in Data Bank, that is a transaction advisor. Your other cousin is having a law firm that is participating in advising. Some of them are, some other firms are his friends. Obviously, Mr. Minister nominee, I don't think those who are raising those concerns are just not doing that about, they are not being, what do you call it, abusive. they are raising concerns that we will all be more careful, because you know the path on conflict of interest and doing the right thing is very narrow. I did not just raising general concerns that need to prompt all of us so that we can constantly stay and make sure that we are doing everything right, rather than maybe labeling it as though it is with some ill motives that people raise this concern.
Mr. Chairman, I think that you are right, and in a democracy, all that should happen. The issue really then becomes whether we throw so much dust in any transaction that even as it is good for the Republic, these issues override them, and we put it aside. And I think those issues should be confronted in a way, maybe have a national dialogue on these things so that we can help move forward. Because the history of people in investment bank or Wall Street becoming treasury secretaries or ministers of finance, even in Ghana, is going to continue. And therefore, how do we address it in a positive way for us not to lose the opportunities of innovation, etc., etc.
Mr. Chairman, as the
Honorable nominee, is there any of these transactions since you started operating in Ghana that Data Bank has not been involved in?
Mr. Chairman, I mean, we have been involved. I remember even in when Kwesi Botwe was, the government had always talked about privatizing a number of maybe 6 or 8 companies, Unilever, PZ, Enterprise, shares, and it had been an impossible task. And when we launched that company, I think in 1993 or 1994, we were able to put together $25 million, to execute that transaction, which was new. I think it was maybe 80% of the stock market at that time. And then when we started the Euro bond issuances in 2007, we were part of that transaction in Kufuor. But even before that also, there was a crisis of liquidity in Ashanti, in which former President Rawlings and former President Mills invited us and Cal Bank to bring our expertise to bear to resolve that. So we've constantly participated, independent of which government there was to date.
Mr. Chairman, just follow up on what you just said. In all the Eurobonds that he's talking about, especially the one that he's talking about in 2007 and I think 2014, they went through competitive bidding, and that's how they got involved. Is he saying that since he assumed office as Minister of Finance and all the Eurobonds that Data Bank had participated, they've been procured through competitive tendering?
Yeah. I think we have subjected ourselves, as far as I know, to whatever process that has gone on, including these past 3 years.
Just wanted to be sure whether it was through sole sourcing procurement of Data Bank or through public competitive bidding, because there are other advisors that may be interested and they need to allow level playing field so that you all compete, and if for good reason Data Bank emerges the best option we have, obviously I will be the last to say, because maybe the finance minister is related to Data Bank, meanwhile they made the best, let's throw it away. I'm only asking, are you saying for certain that they went through competitive bidding and you procure Data Bank through competitive bidding?
Mr. Chairman, as far as I know, since 2007, all of it has gone through the ministry's competitive bidding for us to be part of it. I suspect that the issue of the advisory on the Ashanti liquidity crisis was where Professor Mills selected Databank and CalBank, given their expertise to support the government. And that, I don't think that was competitive bidding.
Mr. Chairman, yesterday in answering a question about enterprise insurance, maybe let me ask this. Enterprise insurance is related to you, right?
I have a shareholding in that.
And enterprise insurance is the one doing the front line. When COVID came, the front line insurance enterprise is part of the insurance companies participating in it.
That's correct.
Were they procured through competitive tendering?
That was a Ministry of Health transaction. I did not follow the process for that.
But I thought that as Minister of Finance, who ultimately pay, you will be watching to ensure that, especially where the enterprise insurance is related to you, you ensure that they do that through competitive bidding, so that nobody can come and question why they are also participating.
I can check on what occurred.
I just want to find out, anytime enterprise insurance company and data bank are involved in transactions, do you recuse yourself when the decisions are going to be made?
If I know about it.
Come again?
If I know that they are competing in any way, I certainly would. Certainly anything that has to do at the ministry, I certainly would know and therefore do not participate in that. And this was the same with Ajapa.
Mr. I don't find out from whether he knows Dachi funds.
What funds?
Dachi
funds.
It's a fund management company, Dachi,
okay,
that manages GETFund and other agencies, loans and other things that has to do with GETFund.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I truly have not been following you know, how these procurements are happening, etc., etc. So I would not even know the details.
But you remember the 1.5 billion loan that we procured to assist GETFund improve the infrastructure?
That's correct. There was.
And you know that the disbursement is not done directly by GETFund. It has always go through Dachi funds.
Okay, I don't know the details of that.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted the Minister of Finance to take this seriously, because the Dachi fund mediating between the facility, the drawdown, and GETFund is serving as a bottleneck, because they vet all the contract payment, certificates and other things before payment. When GETFund came to this house, we knew that we were procuring this Minister of Finance, Minister of Education for GETFund to enable them carry out this activity. Now, Dachi fund comes in between, and they have to be paid a fee for just managing something that GETFund can easily do straight. So I hope, Minister of Finance, you take note, so that where necessary, you ensure that these bottlenecks are taken off. To just continue with GETFund, you know that the capping is affecting GETFund in a way that drawdown on this 1.5 billion is based on how much money GETFund itself is able to raise. So the capping has made it impossible, even in almost all this over 3 years, for them to even draw down on 1/3 of the 1.5 billion. And I'm also aware that Cabinet have advised you about this capping. But I still see in this year's budget capping. Minister, why are you still doing the capping?
Mr. Chairman, I think you have mentioned cabinet advice on that, and we are going to relook at that going forward.
Mr. Chairman, I want to find out from the nominee in the 2019 mid-year budget to Parliament. You mentioned that PPA has saved this country 2.75 billion from reviewing contracts awarded through sole sourcing and restricted tendering. Is it correct?
Mr. Chairman, as far as sort of the data and report we got from PPA, that was the assessment that was given, in which we then shared it in the budget.
Mr. Chairman, why has Ministry of Finance failed to provide this evidence to the anti-corruption civil society organizations when they requested?
In terms of the information that is
yes,
in the
budget?
budget?
Evidence that points to the savings of the 2.75 billion by PPA when they requested from you, the Minister of Finance. To date, Minister of Finance has not provided this evidence of how this 2.75 billion was arrived to them. Why?
Mr. Chairman, I wouldn't know specifically why that has not occurred, and I can investigate. Given that we've put it in the budget and therefore it's public knowledge, I would expect that we should be giving that type of information to
the Minister of Finance. Will you provide that evidence to this committee?
Yeah.
Will you provide that to this committee?
Mr. Chairman, I'll work on this one also.
Which evidence are you asking from him?
In the budget, mid-year budget of 2019, the minister reported that PPA have saved this country 2.75 billion through reviewing contracts awarded by means of sole sourcing or restricted tendering. And civil society organizations, especially the anti-corruption group, have been very interested. So they requested PPA to give them this evidence, how they arrive at that. And they said that they have furnished all this information to Minister of Finance. So then the civil society organization followed up to the Minister of Finance requesting this information. The Minister of Finance has not been forthcoming with it. And the Minister is saying that since it's appeared in the media budget, it should be there. And I'm saying that once it's there, can he provide it to this committee?
That's where my problem is. This committee, we are finishing with him today. When will it come? So will it provide it to Parliament? Then we know that because we are finishing this process today. If we cannot bring it today, then what happens to our work? So I'd rather the pledge is to promise to the to Parliament.
Chairman,
okay.
Yeah, we are done. We are by the grace of God, we are likely to finish today. But you know that the report, the earliest it could be taken could be Monday. So we have the whole of the weekend. So that's why I was asking the minister that he should provide this to us as a committee.
Honorable Minister, will you be able to bring the report to us today or tomorrow when Parliament sits last?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would inquire and see how quickly we can, but certainly commit to provide to the House, as soon as we have it.
If you make a commitment that you bring it, then we mark it down. That's part of our decision processes.
And
that's why I want to be sure whether you can do that.
Mr. Chairman, the nominee says I will provide it. I don't see why the chairman should be worried about he saying he will provide it. Mr. Chairman, as you may know, if he says he will provide it, and even let's assume in an unlikely event he's not able to do that before Monday, you can still take his word and get it for us after.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Because I mean, he's still if it's his nomination is approved, there's government assurance, he'll still be doing business in the House. So obviously,
To be to the House. To the House. That's why I want the commitment will be to the House, and I will make sure
Chairman,
that
I rather prefer that it's to this committee because we demanded it. If it is to the House, he'll be sending to Speaker, and you may not even know when it has come to the Speaker. But if it is to you, who can get it easily?
Mr. Chairman, before all due respect, Mr. Chairman, I don't need to come in here, but I'm a member of this committee. I need a certain clarification. Is it PPA annual reports? PPA annual reports have already been submitted to Parliament.
It is not PPA annual report.
That's why.
But he understands what we are talking about. That's why the
is.
question is not to you,
That's
Honorable.
why all the information. I'm a member of the committee. I need to understand.
Please. Let me regulate this. The understanding is that if it's able to provide it before we close, fine. If not, whenever I get it, I'll make sure it's distributed to members. Please, let's proceed.
Mr. Chairman, I want to find out from the Minister whether he knows this company, KGL Tech Ghana Limited.
Thank you very much, sir. Yes, I think yesterday it was one of the questions, and I do know the CEO of the company.
Do you have any relationship with it or any of your family members related to this company?
Not that I know.
Mr. Chairman, is the nominee aware that they are operating the National Lotteries Authority's 590 game online? I know this question was asked you yesterday, but I just want, for the avoidance of that, I just want to be sure. Whether you are aware.
I am aware that they are working with national lotteries, and they are working on the game that you mentioned.
Yes, I want to find out whether he was aware when they were given license to operate.
Mr. Chairman, there was a meeting in which the issues of is it the 90 game was brought up, and our legal office tried to understand the structure of that transaction, but I really have not followed up since then as to the eventual resolutions that came.
Mr. I wanted to also find out from him whether he's aware that this company was fined 10 million cedis by National Lotteries Authority and what the penalty was for.
That were fined
10 million cedis as penalty, and what that was.
And the penalty was for what?
Yeah, that's what I want to find out from you.
I'll need to verify on that.
Mr. Chairman, is he aware this company has promised National Lotteries Authority 30 million cedis by the close of December 2020?
Promised them.
It promised to make payment.
To make payment.
Yeah, to National Lottery Authority to the tune of 30 million cedis by December 2020. Whether he's aware of this?
By December 2020. You know, I do not know sort of the full details of how they are operating, but it's something that I can verify for you.
Mr. Chairman, whether he's also aware that this KGL has taken over the operations of National Lotteries Authority by raising funds to pay off the indebtedness of National Lotteries Authority. What is aware?
By raising funds to pay. Mr. Chairman, these then get into details that, you know, I can verify. I know we, as an entity, have been quite has been quite disturbed with the way national lotteries have been operating these 3 years, and subsequent changes are occurring.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to find out from the Minister whether there's any intention from the Ministry of Finance to sell National Lotteries Authority to KGL.
No, we have not taken any policy orientation towards selling any entity. We actually, Mr. Chairman, have also looked at the betting business to really see how between the betting and national lotteries we can do a lot better than we are doing. I think they potentially could form the basis for supporting our sports and culture, and we need to completely overhaul the way in which NLL and betting operates. And so we expect to see some major changes so that we can reap through productivity from these two areas.
Yes, I mean, the reason why I'm asking all this is to draw the minister's attention that the relationship that he has with, or knowing the owners or shareholders of KGL and KGL activities around the National Lotteries Authority is something that he needs to pay attention to.
Yes, sir.
And make sure that they are doing the right thing and not exploiting their relationship with him at the detriment of the National Lottery Authority. So I'll be grateful if he pays attention to that. Mr. Chairman, I just want to find out from the nominee whether the Trade Fair Authority works under him.
Mr. Chairman, Trade Fair Authority, obviously, I think between the ministries of Works and Housing and the Ministry of Trade have been, as I know, to be the anchors. There certainly are transactions that they are showing to us about their development going forward.
Mr. Chairman, what warranted the Minister of Finance appointing a CEO for Trade Fair Authority?
Minister of Finance appointing the CEO for Trade Fair Authority.
Honorable, have you appointed the CEO of?
Mr. Chairman, not that I know. I thought it was the presidency and or the ministries that did that. I don't recall writing any letter or whatever appointing the CEO of that institution.
Mr. Chairman, I hold in my hand a letter signed by Minister of Finance Ken Ofori-Atta, the Company Secretary, Ghana Trade Fair Authority Limited, DSA or Madam, nomination for appointment as Managing Director. His Excellency the President has nominated Dr. Agnes Edu to act as Managing Director, Ghana Trade Fair Company Limited, pending the appointments of a substantive Managing Director by the Board of Directors. Please give her the necessary assistance, counting on your usual cooperation. Do you remember signing this letter?
Not that but I'm sure it was subject to the presidency.
And I'm only asking whether you remember signing this letter.
Yeah, I suspect I sign a lot of letters when the Executive Secretary lets me know that certain appointments have been made.
So,
I did not make the appointment.
So, Minister, if you say Trade Fair Authority is under Minister of Trade, between Minister of Trade and Works and Housing, and you are appointing a letter nominating for appointment by the Board of Directors, that's exactly what the Ministers of Trade will do will you say that you are not the one rather in charge of the Trade Fair Authority? You don't ask me a question. Yes, Mrs.
This vetting. Thank you.
Thank you for the assurance. We are back on the 18th of April, May, I think, if the proposals are right. I would be happy to see your bill on our tables or in our pigeonholes. Seriously, because I heard you talk of an era of equity space. Today, people are asking transactional advisors, why not Parliament, why not this and all that. Yes. So this would help you once and for all.
Thank you.
Having done with this, let me take you back to 2016, State of the Nation address by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. And at page 40, perhaps let me even start from 39 so that you can follow me correctly. Mr. Speaker, over the past 5 years, there has been a proliferation of microfinance companies. These companies come under direct supervision of Bank of Ghana. Unfortunately, lack of effective supervision has resulted in many cases in which microfinance companies licensed by Bank of Ghana have breached the rules and created supposed pyramid schemes that have eventually come crashing down. He goes on to cite one company. Many depositors have lost their livelihood, while our laws place this matter squarely in Bank of Ghana's ambit. Government has a concern for the poor, unsuspecting Ghanaian clients who deserve to have been protected by a more robust inspection and supervisory regime by the central bank. He goes on. The object of this will be to look at reimbursing legitimate customers the original deposit amount and not the Alice in Wonderland prospects they were expecting. And more profound is this. This initiative should be conceived in the context of a broader solution that will permanently sanitize and restore credibility to the microfinance industry and strengthen Bank of Ghana's supervision. Now, would you say that the banking sector cleanup you undertook, and rightly so, as the rot there had already been observed by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, was right and on time?
Mr. Chairman, I mean, this is pretty profound. As I mentioned, the AQRs were done prior to the time we came, and even as the former president articulated the problems so clearly, there was still the issue of will and courage to move forward with that. And that is what President Akufo-Addo came to do with the new management of the Bank of Ghana. So we would really have appreciated sort of the other side of the aisle clearly being on our side in what we did, and also to be clear that these were not. This was not a policy that was looking to target individuals. The rot was known. Cleaning the the stables had to be done, and we took up the challenge for that.
So simply put, the steps taken were so done in good faith and without any ill motive, as
completely.
others speculated.
Mr. Chairman, completely. And we have seen the results have been good so far.
Very well. Ghanaians are concerned. In this COVID era, government will struggle with revenue mobilization and all that. Do you assure Ghanaians that all the social intervention programs as captured in the 2021 budget will be sustained?
Mr. Chairman, I think President has been clear on lives and livelihoods as a fundamental intervention that we are doing, and those who continue leave food to school feeding, etc., and even the electricity and water to a certain extent. So yes, the social interventions will continue.
So finally, the cocoa sector, when you are whipped, you have to comply. That's the rule. Finally, cocoa sector, they are reporting low sales. And for farmers, once they have made the beans available, there can be no excuses for whatever happens on the international market. Really, they are also thinking about their livelihood. What plans have you to sustain the cocoa industry?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think, Mr. Chairman, the issue of these 650,000 families is one that we hold sacred, and therefore we would always ensure that their payments are done. As you know, we are even moving further with a certain pension scheme that will further support them. So I would not have any hesitation in declaring that at any point in time, farmers who sell their seeds to us will be duly remunerated.
Mr. Finance Minister Designate, in relative terms, would you say that you have imposed more taxes and levies on Ghanaians than the previous regime?
Mr. Chairman, no, I wouldn't say that. I think if we look at the raft of taxes that we abolished, the reduction in electricity at some point, what we did in the COVID period, and still be able to sustain the type of growth that we have and still exit the IMF program, it is quite clear that on a net basis, we have not really hurt the Ghanaian taxpayer, and it's a lot better than if we look at the statistics for 2016, in which productivity was down, and yet certain taxes were raised, which we came to abolish. So no, we have not net increased taxes.
So let me sign out with this. In 2017, you reported that the debt situation as you inherited was around 122 billion. And the records also have it that in 2009, the NDC administration reported having inherited a 9.5 billion debt. Now, percentage-wise, that is 9.5, and the 122 you inherited, that's about 1,200% or more. My math is not too correct. Now, The critics are worried about the 291 billion you are reporting today. Relatively, would you say that they have justification?
Mr. Chairman, I think I tried to go through this yesterday, indicating the cost of the banking crisis, energy costs, etc., COVID, which all indicated legacy costs, which amounted to some of this, including foreign exchange. But usually you get into a state of bankruptcy with regards to the speed of accumulation. And therefore, when you have 1,000% accumulation, that certainly leaves you into the bosom of the IMF, and therefore the derailment that subsequently occurred. You can see that the progression was not like that in our period in terms of the rate of growth, and you can also identify specific items that led to that. But I think we are in a good place to manage the sustainability as we look at a 3-year plan to bring it down into the ECOWAS levels, and also make sure that our deficit returns to as we are. So yes, a 1,200% increment is egregious, and it will certainly lead to an unbalancing of the economy. I think ours has been more gradual and also specific on items that were legacy that had to be done, such as President Mahama's recommendation that we need to tackle the banking sector. Thank you.
But just a follow-up, are you suggesting that your 2021 budget has introduced more incentives to support private sector growth than taxes and levies imposed?
Oh, definitely. Certainly, we brought down some income taxes. We have tax deductibility for tourism and other industries, and then guarantee funds for them. So yes, we are doing well on that.
Very well. We've done 2 hours. We will give ourselves 10 minutes break, stretch, and then we'll resume to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello there and good afternoon. You're watching Joy News Live. We want to take you to Parliament. The vetting of the Finance Minister Designate, Ken Ofori-Atta, has resumed. And
there are, I think, therefore 10 directors in the ministry, of which one is a new entrant that I brought into that. So even at a very high level in terms of decision-making process and therefore authority to assign assignments, you can see the coloration of that. With regards to technical advisors who then support, and the entry of Samson Agliko is also very crucial because the Ministry of Finance that did not have an investment expert was really not where we were going. So no apologies on that level. With regards to the other technical advisors who helped me in my office, Mr. Minister, it really does not affect the running of the individual directorates, which are all headed by original civil servants and technical people.
Chairman, I'm not questioning the minister whether he's apologetic about those decisions. In recruiting those persons, was the civil service involved as is required by law?
Mr. Chairman, whatever I did, I really ensured that whatever needed to be done was done, given the discussions with the Chief Director to make sure that we did not break any code. But I think the issue, Mr. Chairman, may be beyond what you have stressed, is whether it's suppressing the work of the ministry and members of the ministry and their ability to rise in their work. And I suspect that with all that has been done over these 3 years, it has been an enhancing factor and very promotional to the type of work that we now have the capacity to do.
My question was specific, just for the record. Was the civil service involved as required by law in those recruitment processes? And maybe additional to it, is it true that some of them are paid more and higher than the traditional appointees of the civil service working with the finance ministry? Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know that I broke any civil service code because I did ensure that the Chief Director, we work together in all of these appointments. Mr. Chairman, we also have situations which have persisted where certain development partners support expertise to be brought to the ministry, and certainly they have certain different remuneration packages which is not really aligned with the civil service. And I think quite a number of development partners have supported some of these people we have brought to the ministry.
Chairman, on pensions, you supervise SNIT. There are reports of some of their investment that are raising questions and probably not yielding best returns that guarantees retirement income security for many of the persons retiring on SNIT, not just on second tier. Do you intend to do something about it? Should you become Minister of Finance to improve the investment portfolio of SNIT after an evaluation of their current doings relative to investment as required by the MPRA?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think that has been a long-running issue, and I'm sure you may be even more familiar with it than I am. With regards to looking at SNIT's administrative costs, versus the funds and returns that they have. And so that is going to have to take a look in as to the portfolio classes that they have and how to ensure that what you are advocating, becomes the culture at SNIT. It seems to be a more administrative organization than an investment organization, and I think it's incumbent on us to really look at the direction going forward. But I think it's a concern that both the current chairman and the Director General have had, and then we need to trigger it and get some timelines on this restructuring to give them more precise.
Chairman, I hold with me here Ministry of Finance handing over notes, volume 4, November 2020. I may not be fair to you if you don't have your copy, but I should think that it comes under your signature. I'm referring to a page on ESLA and ESLA bond, and this is what you have to say in your handing over note. As part of government plans to refinance the legacy debt of the energy sector, an independent special purpose vehicle, ESLA PLC, was Incorporated to issue debt securities for the purpose of refinancing the energy sector debt. Subsequent to its incorporation in 2017, the company had issued bonds with a face value of 7,863.75 million. But this is what is of significance to me. You say ESLA bond won an international award. You want to take credit. Few years ago, you said ESLA was nuisance tax. Do you concede today that ESLA, after all, is not a nuisance tax?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think it's, I really appreciate your taking a hand in over notes to look at them. I mean, we have, even gone further, as you see in this year's budget, to do further, sort of Delta Fund for that. So yes, we have found it useful to have had ESLA in place.
Chairman, I needed this because when President Mahama and the NDC introduced ESLA in 2015, and we were walking on the streets at that time with the demonstrations and others, you said nuisance tax, nuisance tax. Today you are issuing bonds in the name of what is nuisance. But that leads me, Chairman, to Amalgamated Trust Bank. What's the status? You came to Parliament for 3 billion, and in particular, the financing of NIB, National Investment Bank. What indications do you have to improve the liquidity and standing of NIB as an important financial institution for the state?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, and I think maybe this is also my kickback to you. Certainly, GATT was denigrated quite a bit as to the objectives of that. But GATT, as you know, was clearly part of the whole construct of President Akufo-Addo's vision of indigenous Ghanaian ownership. And through that, we've been able to save some 4 or 5 Ghanaian banks to be in the SME space for us. That's good. We did give some resources to ADB to make sure that our GRIC was sustainable, and we are going to look at putting some more money into it through the National New Development Bank that we have. NIB has been a difficult one because of the unwieldy nature of it, etc. But NIB for us would be that industrial bank. We have put some money into that. We need to resolve final execution as to what we do. So you have ADB doing agric, and then you have NIB doing industry, but not as a commercial bank. And so the issue of rationalization, I think, is at the juncture. But I think both the Minister of Finance and the Bank of Ghana are in agreement as to how to keep, as to the new NIB that we want. And I'm sure that by mid-year, you have a clarity on how we are going to position that.
Chairman, I want clarity from the Minister. What future can you assure us of NIB? I'm aware that some 500 million arising out of their 25% shares in Nestle was given to them. Subsequent to GAD, some other 800 million was given to them, even without direction or indication what the purpose of the money is. What will be the future of the NIB under you as Minister for Finance? Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think that is a difficulty. We are very clear on our support for our Greek, and therefore that is why GATT puts some money into our Greek. We have taken our time to understand NIB, to see the structure we want. We don't want it to be a commercial bank. We expect that it to be an industrial bank, and therefore to be able to look at their representation in the regions as they have to support industry, and therefore we expect, as you see, we've kept it alive, also 1.3 billion cedis over this time, and we need to now assess the final numbers and amounts that we'll put into it for NIB to become the original industrial bank that it was meant to be, not as a retail bank.
Chairman, that's noted. In your handing over notes, part of the reasons that accounted for Ghana being blacklisted by the EU, you make an observation and the challenges, and I quote, Chairman, with your indulgence, Ghana was identified as a jurisdiction with strategic deficiencies in the AML-CFT regime, and therefore Ghana was placed on the Financial Action Task Force, FATF grade list, and the EU list. What accounted for it, and what are you doing to deal with those identified strategic deficiencies? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yes, this is something we sort of unfortunately inherited, but really in the milieu of all of the banking issues that we have, I guess it was not expected. We have dealt, with this issue since we came into governance, and I think maybe a week or two ago, we did get a letter from FATF, basically agreeing that we have done all of the things that are required to be done for us to be taken off the list. What they need finally is a physical inspection, and they are expecting to come as soon as practicable for that physical inspection, for then give us the nod. So, Mr. Chairman, yes, the beneficial ownership issue has been sorted out with Registrar General. The issue of people understanding what money laundering is, I know has been taken into consideration. The issue of NGOs and how they operate is also being looked at. So lots of work, Mr. Chairman, has occurred. We've gotten this gratifying letter from FATF, and we expect for them to come for inspection as quickly as possible, so that...
Chairman, I appreciate that. The Honorable Zuera of Salaga asked you about the paradigm shift from taxation to production. Now you are back to taxation, introducing new taxes, not akin to the period in 2017. But again, in your handing over notes, you make this observation: implement radical fiscal measures to raise the tax to GDP ratio from current 13% to 20% by 2023. Should we be expecting more taxes? How do you intend to work this? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Africa or West Africa, I think, maybe somewhere between the range of 70 and 20. Europe is around 32. My feeling really in observing these 4 years is that there are certain tax handles that have not been approached at all, such as property taxes, and that should be, and then also illicit financial flows. But truly, the intervention of digitalization is key here, Mr. Chairman, and that really will completely revolutionize the tax base, because all of us will then be taxed appropriately. Effective digitalization could almost mean that I could send you by April 30th what I believe to be your tax obligations are, to help you file that. Also, as you know, in conversion of the TIN numbers to the new national ID numbers, move us from some 3 million to 15.5 million, and that's bringing more people to the tax net. So I think it's more an issue then of compliance, as opposed to saying that you have increased more taxes. Thank you.
Chairman, back to Ajapa. You've reported in this budget your intention was to monetize our mineral royalties for a certain period and to raise some amount of money between 500 to 1 billion US dollars. In this budget, there is some report that our mineral royalties performed with an additional 230 million Ghana cedis. Don't you consider that this would have just been a windfall for any special vehicles for purposes of Ajapa if this had happened?
Mr. Chairman, I think when we make fundamental innovative strategies, we really think of the medium to long term. How are we positioning the country in a new plane? And so, yes, in all such policy decisions, there may be changes in the way, but fundamentally, do we believe that we are moving towards an equity orientation which will sustain us better and support our foreign exchange regime and create Ghana as that? So yes, there may be some short-term ripples, but the nation has to take a long-term view when we get into policy changes of this nature. And I believe it is time to look at equity opportunities.
Thank you, Chairman. You are talking about, in your media review, we all appreciate the fact that 2020 have been an extraordinary year. Taxes have not performed as it should. You anticipated that you would have loss of revenue, if I quoted you right, about 25 billion in respect of COVID. Now, you also got some resources, including support from the World Bank. How much is it costing you to fix COVID going forward?
Thank you very much. I mean, I think as you saw, we ended up one way or the other with an 11.4 or so percent budget and deficit, and we are targeting 9.5% budget deficit for this year, hoping that by 2024 will revert to the under 5%, which is by law. So really, in terms of those ratios, that is what we are dealing with. I'm not sure one can talk about recovery. One can talk about the transformation, which hopefully will enhance productivity so that we are normalized again by 2023, 2024. So yeah, difficult year, but looking forward with hope that we would recover and do much better.
Chairman, I'm back to Bank of Ghana. You know that the Bank of Ghana Act gives you a certain opportunity and leverage, but to stay within the law, you came to Parliament to borrow 10 billion. Parliament granted you approval. Yesterday, I heard you give a figure of 22 billion as financing from the Bank of Ghana. Will you concede that is a breach of the requirement of the law?
Mr. Chairman, I did concede yesterday to 10 billion and had mentioned that I had people talking about 22 billion. But I think it's the 10 billion that I still stand to, and I'll investigate anything else that is purported to have been spent by the Bank of Ghana.
Chairman, when the minister assumed office as Minister for Finance, those were his heydays. He came to Parliament with some prose that Ghana was losing enormously from the grant of tax exemptions. At the time, it was estimated that it cost the state of Ghana not less than 2 billion in terms of exemptions that we granted. He brought a bill to Parliament
he seems shy away from the bill. What's the status of the bill, and what do you want to do to fill in those loopholes of tax exemptions? Thank you, Chair.
A very good question, Mr. Chairman. I think there are sort of three major areas that, if you kindly give me the nod, will be areas that we are going to focus on. And this has to do with issue of revenue collection, the property area, the tax exemption area, and the digitalization are going to be key areas for me in the 4 years that we have. So let me assure you that these three will be areas of keen interest to ensure domestic revenue mobilization.
Chairman, Minister say area of keen interest. It was of interest to you in 2017. Why did you give a terminal death to it into 2021? We don't have a legal framework that deals with those grants that more or less is leaking the public purse in terms, that's loss of revenue if you want to put it in an economic opportunity cost concept. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I mean, a lot has been done in 2017 to 2020, and we are grateful for that. Some things are yet to be done, and these are the three that I'm committing to us doing before that time.
So, Chairman, I'm particularly happy that the Minister has considered on ESLA. I've looked at your tables in the budget statement, both 2020 media review and 2021. ESLA by today have raked in about 20 billion to date, not just helping you retire the problems in the energy sector, but additional proceeds projected even up to 2024 to reach 40 billion Ghana cedis. But Minister, you recall that in 2017, when you presented the budget statement, in particular Appendix 2A, page 160, you have said that the NDC had left a fiscal balance of 10.3% on the old GDP basis. However, this budget deficit before arrears, and you recall you came back to report on some 7 billion with some offset of 5 billion when you dealt with matters of other outstanding expenditures. Does that give you an opportunity to correct the real fiscal balance as you reported in 2017? Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I think we sort of worked on the new series and had those numbers. I'm not sure that, you know, I think we can accept, Mr. Chairman, that Ghana's economic and fiscal health were not the best in 2016, and that is very clear to everybody. We can talk about the nuances of it or not, and that as of 2019. We are in a much better place. And I suppose that is governance. I'm really looking forward to what is seeming like a new working relationship between both sides, given the equality of strength in Parliament, for us to manage this economy together in a transparent way, clarity, so that we move forward.
Chairman, I've had to raise this because when you do a mathematical computation of it, because we are guided by record, when you make reference to numbers, and for instance, during the NDC era, you use up to October, September, not end of year, probably the fiscal deficit would have been 6.1% and not 10.3%, particularly when the Auditor General insisted that those claims were disallowed and not as you reported that you had paid those arrears. Will you agree to that? Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, you know, I think we ourselves at the Ministry sent this to the Auditor General. He did not initiate it because we're looking to understand what the facts of the matter were. So obviously not through any mischief, we ourselves subjected it to what he eventually came up with. And so those were then the new numbers that were recorded.
Yeah, so once you are still there, you recall that when you came to Parliament, you reported the debt to GDP. You gave us a nominal figure of 122 billion, and the Auditor General argued at the time that you had overestimated it by 2 billion. Is that correct? Thank you, Chair.
I can't verify that one for you, Mr. Chairman.
What, in computing yours, must I use the exchange rate of December, or I should use the exchange rate of yesterday in order to do the computation?
Mr. Chairman, I think really all of those issues that every government, but we try to standardize as much as possible to be able to do that. And I mean, I think no mischief intended. We really need to then move forward, accept a baseline, and then see how we make things better for the country.
Chairman, I should be concluding, noting that we are keeping to the protocol and mindful of the state of the minister. Back to the discussion on capping. GETFund, you came to Parliament, took 1.5 billion in the name of GETFund. How much of it have been disbursed so far?
Mr. Chairman, I know that we have done some disbursement getting to the end of the year. I'm not on top of exactly what the numbers are, but I think we have made good progress since we're able to raise some more money.
Chairman, what is the minister describing as good progress? GETFund contractors are crying and weeping. They have not been paid. They have outstanding certificates which is still with GETFund. You came for 1.5 billion, not even $500 million of its equivalent in cities have been made available to the GETFund. Are you aware of the precarious financial situation of GETFund, Minister?
Mr. Chairman, we have, and therefore, as I mentioned, we did raise some more money by year end, which has been done, and ensure that that will be disbursed accordingly.
Minister, it's been said that there is some company which has become an interface between Ministry of Finance. We know, Chairman, it is not acceptable. If you take money, that company, that interface. He didn't ask that. He asked his GETFund question. He didn't ask that.
There's a question, Mr. President.
The interface.
Yes, I think.
Minister, mine is not even a question. It's a commentary. You see, GETFund is being subjected to another layer in order to get approval for releases. I'm saying it strongly that that is not acceptable. If we have earmarked money for GETFund, and you are aware of that. If you cannot make their earmarked funds available to them, and you borrow against their earmarked funds, and you are setting up a quasi-vehicle to subject GETFund before they get payment, we don't find that acceptable. That's the entity, and Chairman, you are right. Muntaka referred to that, I can't name company, which is the vehicle, but it's not the same as my question. I'm just saying that if GETFund have their money, let them disburse their money. Why subject GETFund to another vehicle? Are you aware of the existence of that vehicle?
Mr. Chairman, yes. Your colleague did mention that, and I did commit to look at that, to discuss it.
Do you have any plans to change your position on the capping of the road fund?
I think that has been, brought. I mean, if we look at what we have done with the road fund in terms of payments to it and also raising funds for it. I'm not clearly certain about that they have been penalized in any way. But I think, the issue of roads are important, and we will sit with the minister to see how best to rationalize it. But in truth, the total amount of money that went to road funds last year was certainly more than the uncapped amount because of certain instruments that we brought to bear for road funds.
Chairman, to note that it is reported by the IMF that Ghana loses between 8 to 10 billion per year, about 2 to 3% of our GDP to the grant of tax exemption. So we expect that, Minister, this must be dealt with as expeditiously and with the same enthusiasm and excitement with which you came in 2017, seeking to pluck and deal with rigidities with the introduction of that your abundant tax exemption bill. Can we be assured that you will walk the talk on this matter? Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, there were 3 areas, including tax exemption, digitalization, and property, that are key KPIs for us for this session. Thank you.
The other, Chairman, I should be ending here, is more of a commentary. Ghana Exim are giving loans, credit support to the same entities that are also benefiting from your tax exemptions regime. That's double opportunity being given to the same entity when other entrepreneurs can take advantage. And in sharing your stimulus, just be guided by the collective good of the Ghanaian. We are interested in who gets what from Ghana Exim. And I say that I'll share a long list with you of entities that are taking money in the name of Ghana Exim, and I've come back to you as Minister of Finance to benefit from tax exemption. We need to police how many jobs all those entities have created over the time. We need to police their locations across the country. 1D, 1F was not a concept to end in Greater Accra region or Tema, or to go and absorb some 76 existing companies that exist. So kindly, and I'm of the strong view, Minister, that you are eroding the turf. You are eroding the turf of the Minister for Trade when it comes to matters of trade facilitation. Will you agree to it with the introduction of the things you are doing at the port by WTO rules? That is not your mandate. That is not your role. Matter of trade facilitation is the function and role of the Minister of Trade. Assure me of enhanced collaboration with the Minister of Trade going forward.
Mr. Chairman, I really don't understand the choleric nature of this. The ports are for both revenue and trade facilitation. I suspect that even if you were to look at the current contract between ICAMS and Co., it has been situated at trade, which we need to look at to ensure that the ownership of the future of that contract is embedded with GRA. So I'm not sure of your assertion of that. In terms of protecting our revenues that come to ports, we are not going to sort of recede from that, and I don't think we have done anything to stop facilitation in any way. But yes, we will look to continue to collaborate as much as
Chairman, because it's under oath, the Honorable Chairman was not under oath when he gave us that assurance. Fiscal table to accommodate energy sector expenditure, financial sector expenditure. Will you revise the fiscal table to respond to accepted international standard, as I was assured by the majority leader? Thank you.
Very well.
He hasn't answered that.
Thank you very much. I think the leader read the budget, assured you of that, and even held a brown bag, so you can be assured that.
He only had a new brown bag. It was not like yours. I need an assurance.
I think we went through it yesterday, in which we did indicate the new normal, that we'll do that. That we also wanted to really complete, in a sense, the financial sector review, so that we do it. And given the ballooning of debt to GDP across the globe, it is also a time that we can look at that and merge it. But let's not leave any doubt that it was not identified, and therefore it was an addition which will be there, and we will hopefully by mid-year or year-end, when we know the full numbers, collapse it into one for you. Thank you very much. That's the assurance.
Oh, Chairman. Now, Katie, what are you doing here? Minister, whilst seeing you off, Joy FM have reported gold export syndicate, and the state is losing money. Their exposition, will you be interested in watching it and take appropriate steps for the recovery of those lost revenues?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I did respond to a question about how we are going to tackle this issue of gold, and to really even look at maybe a new model similar to Cocoa Board, to see whether it will be more effective. So yes, it will be of keen interest to see this. Thank you.
Very well, Honorable Minister. I have only two suggestions. One, the public's understanding of their role in revenue contribution is very low. I think we should invest more in educating Ghanaians about their responsibility towards the state in paying their taxes. Yeah. Second, it appears to me we are no longer talking sufficiently about Ghana beyond aid. I want to see a comprehensive communication material showing me my role in ensuring that we achieve that very noble objective of Ghana beyond aid, so that every Ghanaian will know his or her specific role and how much. These are my suggestions to you, Mr. Speaker. On that note, we thank you for attending upon the House.
Mr. I would like to thank you and have some closing statements for that, because this really has been all-encompassing, and I truly thank you for that. I want to express, of course, my gratitude to God for His healing grace, and I want to thank the people of Ghana for renewing the mandate of His Excellency, the President for his confidence in me, Parliament, and you, the vetting committee, for your accommodation and cooperation received in the first term, and the opportunity granted me to do this vetting. I know you've gone out of your way to be able to do that. As part of yesterday's proceedings, there were standing issues, and we will seek to fulfill them for you. For the past 4 years, however, we have together embarked on a journey in which we said we had 2 fish and 5 loaves, but the economy has grown, social protection has increased for the vulnerable in our society, and conditions of people, I believe, have been made better by the grace of the Almighty. The President has been strong in fighting corruption, and if you see what his instruction has led to, very much increase.
The President or you in fighting corruption?
Very much increase our allocations to all of the governance institutions, and they have testified to that. We have been firm in protecting the public purse, strong in fighting COVID-19, strong in fighting for the poor, in adding value to our economy, and strong in fighting for Ghana as a republic, and firm in our commitment to transforming Ghana. The resilience of our country and people enable us to weather the COVID-19 storm better than our peers in Africa.
Honorable Minister, we are done with you, so we want to thank you.
And I want to thank you for this, and to assure you that we would maintain the ministry with integrity and protect the public purse, and to answer you that through the 100 billion of our Tampa Ghana Cares program, and that is the walking legs of the Ghana Beyond Aid program. The work ahead is monumental, and we hope, like Nehemiah, we shall build it together as a nation, and here. I must offer to you the type of leadership that is required, and I believe we can do it, and I'm ready to support that. God bless us all.
Well, now you're discharged. You hear from us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.